Have you ever tried to read Jacques Lacan? If you have, you definitely know the feeling. The ideas feel massive, important, but the language, wow. It can feel like he's intentionally making it impossible, like it's some kind of secret code. Well, today, we're going to find the key to that code. We're going to deconstruct one of the most challenging and brilliant minds of the 20th century.
So everything for Lacan starts with this famous call for a return to Freud. But here's the thing, this wasn't about just dusting off Freud's old books. Lacan looked around and thought that psychoanalysis had gotten, well, kind of tame, kind of boring. He wanted to bring back its revolutionary fire by rereading Freud not as a doctor, but as a thinker who discovered the hidden architecture of our minds. And his main tool for doing that? Modern linguistics.
And this is one of his most famous and, most cryptic statements. What on earth does that even mean? The unconscious is the discourse of the other. It's the central mystery we're going to solve today. What he's hinting at is that the deepest, most hidden parts of who we are, our desires, our fears, our truths, they're actually written in a language that isn't ours. It's a system, like language or culture, that was here long before us, and it speaks through us. All right, so to crack that mystery, we need a roadmap. Here's how we're going to do it. We'll start with what he really meant by that return to Freud. Then, we'll get into his absolute core framework, the 3 orders of reality. From there, we'll dive into his most famous idea, that the unconscious is structured like a language. We'll explore what actually drives us with his theory of desire, and then we'll wrap it all up by looking at why Lacan is still such a powerful and provocative voice.
So, about this return to Freud, Lacan looked at what other psychoanalysts were doing in his time and basically said, you're all making a huge mistake. See, they were focused on the ego, on making patients feel more in control, more whole, more well-adjusted. And to Lacan, that completely missed the point of Freud's entire discovery. For Lacan, the ego isn't the hero of the story, it's the source of all our illusions. It's a fake self we build. The real action, the truly revolutionary part of Freud's work, was uncovering the unconscious, this chaotic, alien, powerful force inside us that follows its own bizarre rules. And Lacan was convinced that the only way to understand those rules was through language. Okay, so to map out this whole internal world, Lacan gives us this incredible framework. He says our entire experience of reality is woven together from 3 interlocking dimensions. You have to understand these 3 to understand anything else in Lacan. They are the imaginary, the symbolic, and the real. First up is the imaginary. This is the world of images, of appearances. It all starts with what Lacan called the mirror stage. Picture a little baby, maybe 6 to 18 months old. It sees its reflection, and for the first time it sees a whole, complete person. And it thinks, hey, that's me. But here's the catch. It's an illusion, a virtual unity. The ego, our sense of I, is built on identifying with this outside image, which means from the very beginning, we're alienated from our true, fragmented self.
Next, we get plunged into the symbolic order. This is the big one. This is language, law, culture, rules, religion, the entire pre-existing network of meaning that we are born into. This is the other we talked about earlier. We don't invent the symbolic, it invents us. It tells us who we are, what to want, and it even structures our unconscious without us ever realizing it.
And finally, there's the real. Now be very careful here. The real is not reality. In fact, it's the exact opposite. The real is everything that gets left out of the symbolic, everything that words can't touch. It's the raw, formless, traumatic stuff of existence. It's pure chaos. You could say that our entire reality, built from the imaginary and the symbolic, is just a giant screen we put up to protect ourselves from the horrifying intensity of the real.
Okay, I know this looks super complicated, but stick with me, because it's a brilliant map of everything we just talked about. Down here, S is the subject. That's the true divided you. Up in the corner, A is the big other, the symbolic world of language. Now that dotted line between them, that's the unconscious, the path where real truth wants to travel, but what's blocking it? See that big solid line? That's the imaginary relationship, from your ego, A, to how you see other people as images, A prime. Lacan's whole point here is that our everyday, surface-level relationships are constantly getting in the way, blocking the deeper, more authentic connection between our unconscious self and the world of the other.
So if we're all caught inside this web of language, this symbolic order, Lacan takes it a mind-blowing step further. He argues the unconscious itself isn't some primitive animalistic chaos. It actually has a structure, the structure of a language.
Lacan borrows ideas from linguistics, but gives them a radical twist.
For him, a word, the signifier, isn't securely attached to its meaning, the signified. In the unconscious, this chain of words is constantly slipping and sliding around. A Freudian slip is the perfect example, right? You mean to say one thing, but another word pops out, revealing some hidden truth. That's the chain of signifiers doing its own thing, totally outside your control.
So, you might be asking, if meaning is always unstable, what stops our whole reality from just dissolving into nonsense? Lacan says we have anchoring points, or points de capiton. Think of them like the buttons on a mattress that hold the stuffing in. For most of us neurotics, these buttons hold things together, even if things get a little lumpy. But in psychosis, a fundamental anchoring point, what Lacan often called the name of the father, a symbol of law and order, was never stitched in. When that fails, the whole thing comes apart. Words detach from meaning, and the structure of reality collapses. So, if our psyche is this constantly shifting chain of words and symbols, what's powering it all? What's the engine that keeps everything moving? For Lacan, the answer is simple, and it's everything. It's desire. And this is absolutely crucial. When Lacan says desire, he does not mean wanting a new car or getting a promotion. That's just need or demand. Real human desire is born from a fundamental lack. It's the gap that opens up between our raw biological needs and the fact that we have to ask for them using language, the language of the other. And because that gap can never be filled, desire can never, ever be satisfied. It's a constant motion, always defined by what's missing.
To really get this idea of lack, you have to understand one of Lacan's most famous distinctions. The penis is just the biological organ. That's it. The phallus, with a capital P, is a symbolic signifier. It's not about the organ. It comes to represent that which the mother desires, and because of that, it becomes the universal symbol for desire itself, and more importantly, for the lack that drives all desire.
And this brings us to his most mysterious and beautiful concept, objet petit a. This is the object cause of desire. It's not the thing you think you want. It's the little piece of the real that was lost when you entered into language. It's that leftover bit of you that sets your desire in motion in the first place. It's why you fall in love with one person and not another. It's not about them. It's because they seem to contain that lost piece of you. It is the X factor you are forever chasing but can never find because it was part of you all along.
So after this wild journey through the imaginary, the symbolic, and the real, after all this talk of lack and desire, where does it all leave us? Well, Lacan's ideas aren't just abstract theories. They're a radical new way of seeing ourselves, and they're as provocative today as they ever were.
If you take away anything from this, it should be that Lacan completely turns our common sense ideas upside down. That stable, unified self you feel like you have, he says it's a fiction, a subject that's constantly being split apart by language. The reality you see, it's not solid. It's a fragile construction designed to hide the real. And your desires? They're not about getting things. They're about the endless pursuit driven by a fundamental lack that can never, ever be filled.
And this leads us to one of Lacan's most shocking and famous statements. What could he possibly mean by this? He means that because we're all subjects of language, split by this fundamental lack, and because we always desire through this fantasy object, this objet a, in the other person, a direct, perfect, harmonious union between two people is structurally impossible. We're always loving a fantasy in the other, not the person themselves. There's always a mismatch.
So, that leaves us with one final, deeply personal question to think about. If Lacan is right, if our desire is fundamentally built on a lack that we can never, ever fill, are we all just doomed to be unfulfilled? Or is it possible that the whole point of life isn't about satisfaction, but about the endless, creative, and sometimes tragic journey of desire itself? That's a thought that really cuts to the core of what it means to be human.